about this division for a moment. And Hawk, I'm going to start with you here, and we could put the picks on the screen. And the NFC North has Caleb Williams, who was the first pick in the draft, and you know, there are people who are forecasting extraordinary things for him. There's Jordan Love, who just got paid, and there are people like me who think he's going to win MVP of the league this year. Oh, by the way, Jared Goff, without a lot of attention in Detroit, has turned into a legitimate top-flight NFL quarterback. And they drafted the kid from Michigan, J.J. McCarthy, in Minnesota, who also, I think, forecast to have a good future. So if you were starting a team with one of the quarterbacks from the NFC North, which would you choose? Hawk, I see you chose Jordan Love. How come?
I just think his ceiling is out of this world. And there is a benefit, such a big benefit, to him having sat and watched Aaron Rodgers. Now, if you're talking contract-wise, obviously I'm going to go with whoever is paying the least. Right now it's Caleb Williams. But when you look at Jordan Love, and again, the worry is that there's going to be a sophomore slump as people and defenses have a whole offseason to prepare for him. But if you look at the way his 4,000 yards broke down, the reason why they don't have a number one receiver that we talk about is because the best quarterbacks know their number one receiver is the guy that's open. And look at the distribution of the stats. Go look at Reed, who had 800. Go look at Dobbs, who had 700. Go look at Wicks, who had 500. Christian, Kraft, Musgrave. He distributes the ball at a different level, and that is the benefit of him having sat watching Aaron Rodgers and getting very familiar with this offense. I think he's going to take an incredible step this year, even though defenses will have an offseason to prepare for him.
Me too. And this whole idea of a sophomore slump, I get what the thinking behind it is. And I know this isn't technically his second season in the NFL. But did Patrick Mahomes have a sophomore slump? No, he was the MVP of the league. Did Lamar Jackson have a sophomore slump? No, he was the MVP of the league. The second year, I repeat, I know that this isn't technically Jordan Love's second year, but the second year, sometimes these guys actually take off.
The only reason you'd have a sophomore slump at quarterback is if you had a fatal flaw in your game, which is maybe you couldn't read zone defense, or there was something with pressure the teams could do to get you off your game. I don't see that with Jordan Love. If we saw that, now listen, the infrastructure around him is helping. Micah Parsons had one pressure in that playoff game last year because Aaron Jones was chipping him, and the line knew what to do, and Matt LaFleur knew what to do. So there's an infrastructure around him that helps, but I don't see a sophomore slump at all because the hardest thing for a quarterback to do is drive the ball down the field and not make mistakes. He did that for 10 weeks last year.
Would you love the kid in Chicago, though? I see him under your name.
I do. I mean, listen, I love Caleb Williams. I think, listen, if we're talking about talent, I think Caleb Williams is more talented of the two quarterbacks. But I love what Chicago has done for the guy who's the number one pick in the draft. How many number one picks come into a situation like Caleb Williams? Yeah. It just doesn't happen.
Never happened before.
It's never happened. I mean, you go out here, you get Keenan Allen, who's the quarterback's best friend and wide receiver. Yeah. DJ Moore, one of the more explosive wide receivers. And then, oh, by the way, you go get Rome Odunze, who's one of the top wide receiver prospects in the National Football League. DeAndre Swift in the backfield. It's just an array of weapons that is going to help this young man to hit the ground running.
I'm going to do a terrible thing to Dan Graziano right now. While he is standing in the building of the Green Bay Packers, I'm going to ask him to explain why he likes the arch rival quarterback. There is no rivalry like Packers-Bears in the whole NFL. Why is Caleb's picture under your name?
Pretty simple. Look, I've said many times on this show, I'm not a scout. I do know contracts, and I'm going to go with the guy who's got the $7-8 million cap number over the next couple years versus the guy whose cap number is 20, 30, 40 million. Caleb Williams, from everything I've been told from the scouts I do talk to, every bit the prospect Jordan Love ever was and maybe more. And the question was, who are you going to pick to start a team with? If I'm starting a team in a salary cap league, I need the guy on the more favorable contract. So that's why I made that pick. All that said, couple of points about the Packers since I'm here. Jordan Love, it's not his second year in the league. He had 3 years to practice and learn at an NFL level.
Exactly.
Nothing. And by the way, talk about last year and their development. The fact that they made it to the second round of the playoffs, this is an often underrated aspect of that. They had 2 more weeks of practice as a result of making it that far. So it's a young team, but it's advanced. And if you're looking for a number one receiver, they didn't really have Christian Watson for much of last year, and he's the guy that profiles that way if he's healthy.
Absolutely. No, it's a great point. Graz will be with us again later. I was also reminded in my ear, because we're just doing this off the top of our head, how'd Joe Burrow do in his second season? Did he have a sophomore slump?
Pretty good.
He led the Bengals to the Super Bowl, for crying out loud.
Yep.
So, I mean, that second year sometimes is bigger and better than the first. All right, Graz, stay close by.